Being home alone, there is nothing like it. You have time to yourself and you have time to put your thoughts in order. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it is a truly strange experience. Ever since I was a kid, I loved being home alone. I even loved the movie. But hey, that's a whole nother story. When my mom and dad would go to work and I didn't have school, I felt like I was the king of the castle. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. True, I had to clean everything up before mom and dad got home, but it was well worth it. I would watch horror movies. I would listen to music my mom wouldn't let me enjoy. I would eat ice cream for lunch and cake for dessert. Yeah, that was the life. And as I got older, having time to myself really vibed with me. That's why when me and my girlfriend first got a place together, things felt a little bit weird. Don't get me wrong, I love her, more than anything on this entire planet, but time for myself was important too. And because she was around all the time, well, it cramped my style a bit. But I thought to myself, that's life from now on. I love her and I have to renounce this preference of mine. Anyway, let's get into the story about the time I experienced something that made me hate being home alone. Me and my girlfriend just started looking around for places to live. We had a decent income and could afford anything we needed, but nothing really clicked with us. All the houses that we saw were either too bland or too futuristic. I may sound conceited, but to each their own. After a couple of months of online searches and endless talks with realtors, we stumbled upon a place in a part of town that we didn't frequent. It was almost near the highway, but had an interesting backstory to it. The place was old. It was a 2-story house built over 200 years ago. It had tall walls, small windows, and an overall antique vibe. My girlfriend fell in love with it at first sight. She would already imagine herself as one of the characters in one of those history-based shows she watched. We shook hands with the realtor and paid the first month's rent. We moved in the very first day. We didn't have a lot of things, so the process wasn't a hassle at all. Everything was wonderful for a while. My girlfriend even bought some antique chairs she found at a flea market. They really fit into the theme of the entire house. "I'm so happy, baby," she would tell me. "I know, we finally got a place to ourselves," I would tell her before giving her a big hug and a kiss on the forehead. Nothing went on for the first couple of weeks, but then things started to change. Of course, everything happened when I was home alone. I would tell my girlfriend what happened while she was gone, but every single time she would just laugh and tell me I'm imagining things. But believe me, what I'm about to tell you is the whole truth. I know some people would consider me crazy, but I just need to get this off my chest. It was a typical Wednesday. My girlfriend was at work and I had a day off. Instead of going out, I decided to stay and maybe read a couple of pages from my favorite book and drink some tea. I had a pretty chill afternoon planned out. As I was flipping through the pages, I felt a cold gust of wind. I didn't pay any attention to it at first, but then a couple of minutes later, a second one made my hair stand up. I put the book on the table, and just as I got up to go and check if any of the windows were open, my book flew off the table. "What the hell is going on?" I said out loud while looking around. I then checked the windows and saw that none of them were open. As I was returning to the couch, a sound caught my attention. It sounded like someone was crying, but the crying was inside my house. May I remind you that I was alone. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I asked while my voice trembled. Crying stopped, but I still went upstairs to check it out. As I opened each door of the 3 rooms, I didn't see anything. Nothing happened for the rest of the day. Of course, I told my girlfriend, but as I mentioned before, she just laughed it off. A couple of days went by and nothing happened. You may wonder why. That's right, because my girlfriend was there. About 5 days later, she was out visiting her parents. Again, I was all alone. As I was brushing my teeth, I heard the same crying sound coming from the next room. I left the toothbrush at the edge of the sink and quickly went to see what the hell is happening. "Hey, who's there? I have a gun," I said in order to intimidate the intruder. The truth was that I was unarmed, but I said the first thing that came to mind. The crying stopped. I checked every nook and cranny. Nothing was out of the ordinary. I went back into the bathroom, and what I saw written with toothpaste on the mirror made me at a loss for words. Why did you abandon me? I didn't know what to think about it. Then the rest of the day went on as normal. I didn't wipe the writing on the mirror. I wanted my girlfriend to see. As soon as she got home, I told her everything. Come on, who's crying? You are all alone here. You're imagining things, believe me, she said. I'm not. There's something wrong with this place. I think it might be haunted, I told her, but my theory quickly made her laugh almost to tears. Oh yeah? You think it's funny? I said. Come on, I have to show you something, I told her, confident that the writing on the mirror will convince her. But as we went into the bathroom, it was gone. The mirror was spotless. Is this one of your pranks? Did you watch too many YouTube videos? She said, while kissing me on the cheek. I'm gonna go change, she told me, and left the bathroom. I remained there, stunned. I knew I had proof, but it was gone. Then everything was fine for a couple of days. Again, the time to be home alone came. She had some errands to run around town, and I had to work from home. At around noon, the crying started again. I tried my best to ignore it, but this time it got louder and louder. It was like I was the one being accused of leaving the person alone. I don't know if it was a man or a woman's voice. It was distorted, as if it came from an old radio with bad reception. I went insane. I wanted everything to stop. I'm gonna find you, I yelled. Then I went in the garage, my vision filled with rage, and grabbed a sledgehammer. I started smashing all the walls while cursing and telling the voice that I'm gonna get rid of it. That's it! I'm gonna find you now! My voice could be heard between the sound of the walls being hammered down. As I got upstairs in the master bedroom, the crying got so loud that it almost burst my eardrums. I know you're here! I yelled before smashing the hammer into the wall. What I found made me put the tool down. Inside the wall, there was a small wooden box. I opened it and saw some pictures, a woman and a man. It looked like they were married. They both smiled. What the hell? I said while looking through the photos. At the bottom of the box, a letter was placed. It was dated 1812. Dear Jackson, long have been the nights since you left me. I weep every waking moment. Are you happy with your new conquest? Have you forgotten about me yet? This is the last night in which I will breathe my last breath on this earth. I bid you farewell and wish you nothing but happiness. Forever yours, Mary. After I finished the letter, my girlfriend came home. She saw the mess, but then I finally had something to show her. We moved out of that place before night came. It seemed that Mary's soul was still trapped in limbo, roaming around the house until eternity, waiting for Jackson to come back to her.
Did you enjoy the first story? If you did, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Oh, if you want your broccoli to be served fresh, then don't forget to hit the bell icon. Keep munching.
In 2015, I managed to land my dream job as manager of this really old rustic pub. It was the kind with stained glass windows, ornate bar fixtures, the works. But it was bought up by this big brewery company not long after, and they ended up cleaning house. So within 6 months of getting my dream job, I'd lost it again. I was desperate. I had rent and bills to pay, so I was ready to work just about anywhere, doing just about anything, for any money at all, really. So I ended up getting a job in this 24-hour off license in the middle of town, and it was my job to work the night shift, 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. This place was really busy too. Had a cash machine inside, sold really expensive bottles of premium booze, and was mostly a cash business. It was the place that pretty much every single person who went out to drink and wanted to carry on drinking when the bars closed would stop off to pick up a few bottles before they got a taxi home. So I'm not messing around when I say we sometimes had like 7,000 pounds in cash on site by the end of the busiest part of the night shift. And well, I say we, I mean me, as I work that shift entirely alone. So it's Sunday morning, about 5 a.m., and it's just before Christmas. The off-license had been extremely busy that night, and we had way more than 7,000 pounds on site. Like it had been Black Friday, which in the UK means that it was the last Friday before Christmas, so all the office parties had been in town, spending it up, and they pretty much all wanted booze to go home with, too. There were queues going out the door at one point. Seriously, it was one of the busiest shifts I've ever worked, including in pubs. So by the time it started to quiet down, I was ready to collapse. I remember just sort of resting my head on the counter at one point, thinking I could have actually fallen asleep right then and there. Then I hear the little beep at the door opening. And although I'd rather have flushed my own head down the toilet than serve another drunk customer at that point, I get ready to serve one more person. I look up, and in front of me is this bloke who seems alarmingly sober. Like almost everyone who walked in during those Saturday night shifts were rotten drunk, eyes all glazed over and bloodshot, slurring their words, but this guy is shockingly lucid, which was dead weird. He also keeps his hands in his jacket pockets the whole time he's talking. But it gets even weirder when he greets me by name. I thought he might have known me, and I just didn't recognize him, so I remain polite and say like, "Yeah, that's me. How do you know that?" Then he once again refers to me by name and follows up by telling me where I live. Again, I'm like, "How do you know that?" Only this time I'm also thinking that this is a plainclothes policeman or something, and I've done something wrong, like accidentally sold a bottle of booze to someone under 18, maybe even failed one of those underage tests the police try on occasion to catch businesses. Then he starts asking after my mom, then refers to her by name, and asks about my sister, again knowing her name too. He asks me if they're still living at such and such address, and gives their exact street address. I then apologize and tell them that I just didn't recognize him, figuring that he was an old family friend or something that I'd forgotten all about. But something about him is creeping me out all the same. He didn't once take his hands out of his jacket pockets, like to the point it was getting sort of odd. People talk with their hands all the time, and this guy's hands were like wedged into those front pockets on his jacket. That's when these other guys walk in, who also seem weirdly sober. They were quiet and deliberate in their movements, just pacing towards the counter and flanking the guy who seemed to know a little too much about me. Then really politely, the guy who seemed to know all about where I lived and where my family live asked me if there's a toilet in the back of the shop. I told him there was, and he tells me to walk back into it, lock the door, and not come out for at least half an hour. And just to make it clear that he's not really asking me, he shows me that he's holding something inside his jacket, something heavy. Only then do I realize what's happening. They proceed to take all the CCTV USB sticks, wreck the monitors, break into the safe, rinse the tills, empty the shelves of all the premium spirits. I mean, they absolutely robbed the place blind. All the while, I was just sat in the toilet, wondering how that guy knew where I lived or where my family lived. As they were leaving, I heard footsteps walking up to the toilet door, and I started shaking hard. Then I hear this voice telling me that I did the right thing, for the sake of my family, that all the stuff that they'd taken was insured, that no one but the insurance companies would lose a penny, and it was them who were the real thieves anyway. I ended up telling the police that I didn't get a good look at the guy's face, and that I wanted to help them, but that I just couldn't. I told them that it all happened really fast and that they must have been professionals because I didn't even get a chance to hit the alarm behind the counter. They must have gotten away with like 10 grand all in all, and they didn't even take half an hour to do it, more like 15 or 20 minutes to be honest. And they'd managed to make sure that the one person capable of identifying them wouldn't say a thing to anyone about it. Like I can't even tell you how frightening it was that they managed to work out where my mom and sister lived. People who put that kind of work into criminality, they really are not to be messed with. And besides, it's just stuff, just material stuff. It's not worth losing your life over, and it's certainly not worth risking your family's safety over. No amount of money compares to your own mom's safety.